Prime Minister, the police have announced another 50 fines. You again? Your wife?
No, but as soon as I have more to say about that, Sam, as I've said to you many times before, as you know, you will be amongst the very first to know.
100 fines is quite something. It wasn't that long ago, 5 months, that you said no rules were ever broken. What do you say to people who find it difficult to believe that you ever really thought this was true?
Well, as soon as I have any more to say about that, Sam, you will be amongst the very first to know. But what we're doing here in Stoke...
if I could just stay on this topic. Our questions, Prime Minister. Keir Starmer has said that he will resign if he's found guilty of breaking the law. Why do you think he did that? Is it evidence of honour?
Look, as soon as I have any more to say on this subject, I will make sure that you, Sam, are amongst the very first to know. But what we're doing here in Stoke is making sure that we focus on the thing I think that matters most to the people of this country right now, and that is getting us through the post-COVID aftershocks, making sure that we not only help people with the cost of living right now, with all the things that we're doing, and continue to apply maximum ingenuity to dealing with it, but also take the steps that are necessary to deal with some of the supply side problems, particularly on cost of energy, cost of housing, cost of transport, cost of childcare, and look at what we're doing in the Queen's speech and beyond. And you've got the bills that are going to be necessary to help us through it. And so the British Energy Security Strategy is there to help, particularly with our basic strategic failure over the last few decades to make sure that we have dependable resources ourselves. I've just been to a fantastic business here in Stoke where they are growing, they're putting on sales around Europe, but they're hiring more and more people. But they need to have secure, dependable energy supplies. That's why we're having a nuclear reactor every year. That's why we're going into 50 gigawatts of wind by 2030.
Prime Minister, that was the Queen's speech on Tuesday, but what are you going to do next? There are an array of options that you could reach for. What do you think of? Income tax cuts, a windfall tax, getting rid of grade levies? And do you think that we need help, as some of your MPs say, that's basically on the scale of the COVID rescue package? Which of those options are you leaning towards or against?
So we will continue to use all the ingenuity and compassion that we showed during the COVID pandemic. And what we're already doing, as you know, is helping people with the cost of energy, a £9.1 billion package to help people right now, £22 billion altogether, helping local councils to support families that are in particular hardship. But the crucial thing that we're doing is making sure that we steer the economy through the post-COVID aftershocks with continued high-wage, high-skill employment. And that has been the real miracle of the UK economy in the post-COVID period. We had the biggest plunge in output for 300 years. People thought we would now have unemployment running at about 12 or 14%. Actually, it's right down to 3.8%. Youth unemployment is at or near record lows. And that is a crucial thing. So what we're focused on, everything we're doing now, is focused on continuing to deliver jobs and growth. That is the best way to power through the difficult times now, caused by global inflation in the costs of energy. That will eventually come down. That will eventually abate. So we've got to help people right now with all sorts of things, and I've mentioned some of them, but what we've also got to do is fix the underlying supply side issues.
But more help, Prime Minister. We're expecting a statement potentially even before the summer when Rishi Sunak's going to have to open his purse strings. Can you give us a sense of what you think needs to be done at that point?
So in July, for instance, what's already happening...
We know what's already happening. We want to know what else is in the pipeline.
In July, there is going to be the tax cut for everybody on, or 70% of people on national insurance. That's probably worth about £330. You've already seen the cuts in council tax. We will do things to help people in the short term, of course, and I'm not going to anticipate anything more that we may do. But the crucial thing is to make sure that we have the strong employment situation, because that is the key thing. You remember the economic crises of the 80s or the 90s. And what was so harrowing about those times, what I remember as being so utterly miserable, was millions of people who were on the economic scrap heap, who were told that they couldn't get jobs. That was a terrible time for our country. We've got, in many ways, the opposite of that situation now. Business I've just been in here in Stoke, they're looking for labour. They're looking for high-skilled people to come in. Now, the job of government, our job right now, is to help those businesses to find the people they need, to skill up people in this country, which is what our Queen's speech does, but also to make sure that they have the dependable energy supplies that they need. That is absolutely vital.
Prime Minister, people in work are still also having to go to, for instance, food banks. Your MP Lee Anderson said that food banks have grown in part because people are hooked on ready meals, not prepared to cook for themselves. What do you make of those comments?
We've got to support people who are finding it tough in any way that we can. And I've said some of the things that we're doing. But when it comes to supporting people who need food, for instance, and families who are facing particular hardship, we've given extra money to councils, and we'll continue to do that. You know about the holidays and activities fund that we've been supporting, £200 million worth of support for people whose kids are going without meals. We can't have that. We don't want to see any kid, any family going hungry in this country, and we will do whatever we can to help.
But is Lee Anderson right to say that people are using food banks because they can't cook?
The best answer for the problems of kids going hungry, which is, in my view, totally unacceptable, of families not able to get the meals they need, is to do all the support that we're giving. And as I've said, we will use maximum ingenuity and compassion throughout this period as we come through the post-COVID aftershocks, but also continue with our focus on high-wage, high-skill jobs. That is the thing that is really going to take this country forward.
Northern Ireland, Prime Minister, can you just set out what you think is needed? Do you think the text, for instance, of the protocol needs to change? Is that a precondition for sorting this out? Or could there be a solution that we negotiate with the European Union that leaves that original text the same, but just changes the way that the EU implement it?
Look, Northern Ireland is an incredible place, got a fantastic future. At the moment, very sadly, the institutions of democracy, the political governance of Northern Ireland has collapsed. The institutions set up under the Belfast Good Friday Agreement aren't functioning. The executive, the assembly, they can't form. That's a bad thing at any time. It's a bad thing now when the people of Northern Ireland need leadership. They need a government, a regional, provincial government that will focus on cost of living, on healthcare, on transport, on the things that matter in their everyday lives. They haven't got that. That's a real problem. Now, the reason they don't have that is because there's one community in Northern Ireland that won't accept the way the protocol works at present. We've got to fix that.
But do you need to change the wording of the protocol to get a solution?
We need to get the executive, we need to get the government of Northern Ireland up and running.
It's noticeably you're sidestepping that question.
And that's vital. And so, no, not at all. So it follows, since it's clear that the unionist community won't accept the protocol, that's, I'm afraid, obvious from what has happened, we've got to fix it, and we'll have to.
Final question for the pool. What's your response to allegations in the New York Times that a Conservative Party took donations from a donor with links to Russia, Ehud Shelek, I believe, and money linked to a Russian bank account?
All our donations are registered in the normal way, and to give donations to a political party in this country, you've got to be from the UK.
Well, let's rejoin our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, in Stoke. Sam, as ever with these interviews, time is short, but the list of things to talk about is very, very long. A lot crammed in there. What were your main takeaways from what the Prime Minister had to say?
Well, Sarah Jane, in these interviews, any number of different Boris Johnsons can turn up. Sometimes you get repentant Boris Johnson, sometimes you get enthusiastic Boris Johnson. Today, we got campaigning disciplined Boris Johnson, who didn't want to give a quarter despite the, frankly, pretty atrocious headlines that weren't sort of programmed in for today, all generated by the Metropolitan Police because of the announcement that they have doubled the number of fines that have been levied to people in Downing Street and the centre of government as a result of Partygate. Time and time again, I asked him, what do you think about it? What's your reaction to Keir Starmer promising to resign? Yet Boris Johnson simply said that if he had more to say, he would come back to Parliament, come to the media and say it in future, not wanting to... No, it's a gamble to not show any contrition. It's a gamble essentially to deadbat that subject. I think that the Conservatives over the last few weeks have been trying to turn the spotlight onto Keir Starmer. He has now pledged, of course, to resign if Durham Police in the next 6 to 8 weeks find him guilty of having broken COVID rules. Now there is a renewed focus, particularly after today, on Boris Johnson. He is trying to simply make that a question for the future by saying he's going to wait until all of the police investigations are wrapped up, and that could still be some time, I understand, because questionnaires still going out last week and interviews still going on. And then, of course, there'll be the report by the civil servant Sue Gray, and only then will he really account for himself. So basically, Boris Johnson's saying on that, I'm not going to talk about it today, and he hopes that that line will hold, and he hopes that he won't endure too much criticism from his party on that. On everything else, again, it was more of a campaigning tone where he was unwilling to give many details of many answers, frankly, to the questions that we were asking. Typical Boris, he gave a smorgasbord of different references to things in the Queen's speech, initiatives that this government's doing. We had nuclear power stations, we had regional government, we had the whole lot, frankly, but not really much detail on what he thought about Lee Anderson's comments about food banks, what he thought should be done before the summer to help people with the cost of living crisis that hasn't already been announced, what should happen to the Northern Ireland Protocol, whether or not it should be junked, the actual core text should be junked, or there's a solution outside of that. So all of those main questions, or all those questions unanswered, lots of words from the Prime Minister. Otherwise, however, Sarah Jane.